Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight from the great Midwest is RDV. Here in Central Florida, it's a balmy 42 degrees. RDV, you probably had a few inches of snow up there, but it doesn't really matter during this post-Christmas holiday, Kwanzaa, if you're into that sort of thing. Whatever it is you do at the end of the year, we like to sit back and reflect on the previous year and what the next year is going to bring. And all I kept thinking was, RDV, I'm wanting some more Tulsa King. And here we are at episode 7. And finally, like we said last week, things are starting to pick up. We're having a lot less goofy, silly stuff in here. Nothing too dumb or too stupid. This episode felt like it mattered. It felt tense to me. I really enjoyed this episode. There's a lot to talk about it too, but I'm really hoping the next couple episodes continue snowballing down that hill of intensity, and we have this big final thing going off because it feels like he's getting surrounded. Although he may have a new female in his group, but we'll talk about that as we get through the episode. What's your initial take?
My initial take of this is exactly what you said. Shit was gonna hit the fan, and now we're getting close to the big bad. Climax of the show, the final battle. It is nice to know there's a season 2, so it's not like a one-off where he gets killed at the end. That's it.
Agreed. We mentioned at the end of last week's episode too, so we can relax a little bit and go, all right, this is next season.
The big bads are starting to be. We're getting rid of more of the weaker. We thinned out some of the herd this episode. At least 2 character deaths.
Yes.
There was one last week. So, one of them was actually I knew it was going to happen. I couldn't believe it took 8 episodes.
7, but
7, yeah. So if you want to give a little recap.
Well, for me, the interesting thing for this episode is that as we saw the shootout at the end of the bar there on Indian land, which I still think is going to be a prominent thing. That's where they're kind of reconstituting their efforts location-wise. I thought it was pretty neat because what Dwight does is he takes the jacket of the so-called hitman and sends it back to the hitman's boss because they're looking for the guy and they can't find him. And I thought that was pretty badass too, because they go out and they bury him out in the middle of nowhere at night or whatever. And the guy's like, "Hey, is this going to be a one-off, or is it going to be more?" And he goes, "It's too early to tell." It's just going to be be more. I really like that.
Yeah, I like that. Garrett Hedlund, I think, is the guy who plays Mitch. I can't remember his name is in the show, but he's the bar owner. And Mitch is Mitch Keller. And he says, do you want me to put a pike in there, wrap it up in there, fish in there? He's like, and then he's asking this, and with the jacket, he's like, what are you doing with this? He's like, and when he's asking, Stallone Dwight got a phone call from his daughter.
Yeah.
About her husband being jumped. And he asked, well, wait, she got mugged. Did they take his wallet? She's like, well, no. And he knew exactly what happened. He knows that it was one of the guys, retaliation because he made waves. He went and killed the guy, and it's this episode though is not the fall, but might lead to the fall of Charles. And they call him Chicky. His character is with his father, Pete Invernizzi. I just everything that's going on with this, and you can see, and sometimes I look at this with the cast in here, I forgot that his character's bald. Yes. I didn't know that. I forgot the actor's bald.
Yeah,
the toupee. So it's because it looks so believable, it's stuck on there.
Yeah, yeah,
and so
he looks bald.
He does. He does look more intimidating. So anyway, so Dwight's kind of wants the family to come down. He's like, I don't trust this. And then of course we got her husband's a soy boy.
Yes.
Definitely. He's like, and because she even suggests well, maybe we should go down there. He's like, it's like move there. He's like, what? To live with your gangster father? It's like, we're safer up here. I'm like, dude, you got your ass kicked, and then you take your wallet. Think about that. He's mad because he doesn't want to leave his Wall Street gig.
Well, you know what? And I want to take a moment here to kind of bring up 2 things, because I think even though we're joking about him being kind of a soy boyish and a bit of a stiff or whatever like that, that is her choice, who she married and all that.
Yeah.
I didn't really like him either. He has a point. it's like, hey, I'm making the big bucks here. This is what I do. I don't know how much he really knows about how deep it is, or if he goes, oh, that's just an old school thing. It doesn't matter to us that it's not as real as
Yeah,
it might have been in the 70s kind of thing or whatever. So he has a point, and even though I don't care for him or whatever, he is right to sit there and say, well, there's no need to do that. How do we know it's them? Well, tell me, and we're not convinced that she's like definitely going to do it, which honestly, after the first episode or two, I really didn't think it was going to go in this trend, but I certainly don't mind it. But the other thing too that you brought up, which I think is a really good point, which I kind of really glossed over a little bit because I'm still taking this seat back to this because I don't care about a lot of these characters. But when you've got um, how do I want to say this? When we have Chicky and we got like him killing his dad, who actually
that
health
that
got better as the
yeah,
season went on. I
yeah.
wasn't expecting that either. I was expecting the guy to kind of say one or two things, Chicky to become the boss. But I like the fact that, oh, it's daddy, daddy didn't love me. I hate joking like that, but that's
Oh,
exactly what goes in my head when I hear Austin Powers. Like, daddy didn't love me. But the way he did it, and then now he's bald, which signifies him now being the man and the hair is coming off. He's his true self. I was like, all right, I'm buying it. It
I
worked for
love,
me.
but I love his dad though. Pete is like, it's like with always the whining, the whining. It's like, you're rich, you have a big house.
Yeah.
Quit the whining. And I agree with the dad. It's like, dude, and little Chicky couldn't deal anymore. He's like, he wants to be in charge now. It's like he didn't earn it. What did he do? It's his dad's business, and he wants like you said, his dad should have discarded him a long time ago. Embarrassment it is.
All right, let
Uh,
me let me bring this up because I want your take on this. I'm gonna pat myself on the back here and try not to pull a hammy doing so, but I told you there's something more to Bodhi than what was going on, and we find out here that
ooh,
when they
that
get
yeah,
when they
big
get back to
reveal.
where the FBI raided their pot place, that he's got a little thing hidden, which I'm surprised the FBI didn't get, but in a way I'm not. And he loads up his computer, and we see that he's got about 6-7 million, whatever it was. Um,
Bitcoin.
in Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, they're going to bring this stuff in here. So no matter what anybody's thoughts are about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin or whatever, I thought this was an interesting development because it tells me we know he's not dumb, but we don't know if he's always stoned all the time because he basically, right or wrong, it seemed like it was almost too easy the way he let Dwight take everything. And it's not that he did the wrong thing by allowing Dwight to do it, but I wondered why there was no resentment from him because he was the boss of that whole thing. So I was going, he's not going to lay back and let this happen, right? But
Mhm.
here he is, where he seems like he's a part of the crew, right? Because he goes back and he has dinner with them last episode. But then here he's telling them, you know, hey, this is what I do or whatever. I steal it from other people or like that. Did you, are you the only person that's like a
Yeah.
criminal here? And I'm like, that was kind of cool, but I don't know what they're trying to do with this.
Well, because the weed business, and because the feds are looking into the weed business now, Dwight's changing it, and Bodhi has an extra thing of cash here. So basically, I think Bodhi is basically 100% in now because he saw how his shop was basically destroyed like that, and I think he just, at first I thought he was gonna like turn on him,
Right.
but I think he has respect for Dwight, and knows that Dwight actually respects him too. You know, uh, I guess, like I said, Bodhi he's a quiet guy. He's the guy who'll let the bullies push him around, but he's the one that also will just basically change their grades and get, or whatever you want to do. He's the one that he's the hacker. He's the one that'll get even, the last laugh. But
Take a minute and talk about the whole thing with, you talked about this too, about how we're calling the herd here a little bit, we're thinning people out or whatever. But Roxy was Stacy's informant, and I thought this was kind of
yes,
an interesting angle because Roxy, at first when we meet her, she seems kind of stern and tough. We find out she's
hmm
anything but. She's a bit of a mess, and we know that Stacy, part of me always had mentioned that I felt like she's the one I'd be
yeah,
afraid of the most. But this is
Roxy.
interesting, Roxy and Stacy. I thought Stacy still had a little bit of strength, basically telling Roxy, "Hey, this is what you need to do." Until, of course, Roxy dies.
Well, yeah, and the Roxy, when we first introduced her a couple episodes ago, and you see her, she seems like the person that'll just cut you. She seemed like the real pro, like she's the Nazi girl, the one, the hot Nazi that that does basically like you wouldn't expect it, and then she just kills you and laughs at you. Uh, you know, but instead, she actually is just putting on a show. And it's revealed. We knew that she was working for the feds. Eventually it was revealed that, but we didn't know it was like six. Now we got a time frame. It was 6 months ago she got arrested because we learned this out because she breaks into Colan's, Wall Trip. That's the guy.
Waltrip. Mhm.
Yeah, it basically breaks into his office because after her husband gets murdered. Well, she doesn't know. She doesn't know the whole thing. All she knows is that he didn't come home last night, and this is the guy who was sent to shoot up the bar the previous episode, and she's freaking out because she saw with the bar. She came in. She had the box. She's like, oh my god, my husband didn't come home last night. I don't know where he is. CJ or whatever. So they open the box and it's his vest. So she starts freaking out. They get her out of there. And then she ends up calling the basically the feds, or I guess ATF, calling Stacy, and Stacy basically said, "I'll meet you here." I know this whatever marker over it, and they talk, and she said, "Well," and she's like, "I can't do this. They kill it." I was like, "I don't want this." She's like, "Well, guess what? We had a deal, and you want to get out of this? Go give me something. I need dirt on him to put this guy away. Do it in honor of your husband. Do it for him. And so she breaks into the office. And this is the thing. I knew she was going to die. There's no way that this guy's going to let her live. Wall Trip is basically he catches her in the office.
The way he opened that door right behind him, the way they framed that
shot,
that was pretty good.
Yes, they framed it because she was sitting at the desk trying to go in the computer. She'd gone to the files. She didn't close the file, and then he walks in. He's like, "What you doing?" And she starts freaking out. And she has this is interesting, dude. She has this knife. And it's attached to basically a survivalist, cord,
right?
Rope. And so basically he's like, so then he starts flirting with her a little bit. He's like, "Oh, you need a man in your life, even your husband knew that, but no, well, he's like, I always kind of fancy it." And she's like, "Oh," she's like, "I could be your lady." And then he picks up the knife. And he's like, "Oh, you're gonna cut me now?" And he's like, "Oh, no, don't relax." And he puts the rope around her neck, and then I'm like, "Oh, she's dead now."
Oh yeah.
And he strangles her. And then so of course when Stacy goes to call her the phone later on, she's at the diner because she's supposed to call her back. She's like, "What's going on?" And then Waltrip answers the phone. Stacy is pissed off because she knows about Roxy's Roxy told her husband was shot. He never came home, killed. And so she confronted Dwight about it in this hotel room.
Yep.
And he had his gun in his stub nose 45. And then she's like, "Oh, did you kill me?" He's like, whoa, what's the accusations? And hello to you too. And I love it. It's like, she's like, "I could arrest you for this, And he's like, "Okay, arrest me then." And she's like, "What do you think?" Oh, and she's like, I love how she says, "Do you think the judge in Oklahoma's gonna give you a free pass?" Like, "No, you're gonna get the chair." I'm thinking now you're just basically huffing and puffing. She's not. I don't think you get the chair. First of all, they got to find the body, and second of all, it's like if I almost would have thought they would have had because remember it's on Cherokee land, so the guy came in attacking him. The video could show this guy was shooting up my bar, it's self-defense.
Yeah, and because the population density usually around those places, unless there is a casino, which does get talked about in here, them building one in the future, you're not going to have it. So it makes complete sense that's the case.
Yep.
What about though?
Now, the other one, Dave Delaney's character.
Yeah, but before we get to that, I wanted to bring up one final thing because I think the Dane Delaney thing is really, really big. We're seeing, like I say, it feels like a lot's happened in 7 episodes. It's a little bit of a serious thing here. I just have to bring this up because it's me, and if it's not worth discussing, we'll table it. But this main bad dude, he doesn't have a bad look.
Which one? They're both kind of Ponzi's.
Just whacked Roxy.
Oh yeah, that Waltrip. Yes,
Waltrip. I don't know if they're supposed to be Irish. I don't know if that's supposed to be his accent because sometimes it sounds Irish, sometimes it doesn't. Certainly not Scottish.
Well, I think he is. He might be Irish. And then again, because he was called a freaking leprechaun by Dwight.
Yeah, I can't figure out what this is. So I've been starting to wonder.
IRA maybe.
Well, I'm wondering if he's just not a straight up generic Irish, in the 80s, definitely IRA, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
90s, but something else. Because, and the reason why I say this, and this is a leap here, and these things happen fast when you're watching episodes, so sometimes these little details get past you. But we had talked about how in this episode we saw how Bodhi had roughly 6-7 million in Bitcoin that apparently he had stolen, right?
yeah.
We know in episode 1, I think it was, where one of his gang members, I guess, got arrested or whatever, and the house blew up or whatever after he let the dogs out, that
True.
guy was hoarding guns. We're going, wait a minute. There has to be money in financing to launder the guns. Right now, we're focusing on Dwight and honestly, small pancake stuff.
What? Yeah.
We're trying to find our
What
niche
else
line.
is Wall Trip into that
Right.
the feds are going
But
after him?
we also saw on his laptop earlier, maybe in episode 2 or 3, roughly about the same amount of money that he had. I want to say it was around 8 or 9 million, like 8.7 or
You think
something.
Bodhi got the money from him?
I I I I don't know if they're connected somehow, but because the amounts are roughly the same, and Bodhi's smart, I'm just reaching here because I go, I don't think Walter, whatever the hell his name is, he's not left a good impression on me because of his leprechaun type performance, which might be intentional, but makes me go, is there more to him than meets the eye? Because
Well,
you've got to have the money and the financing and the laundering ability for all these things to happen. So that already exists in his world. Dwight is new to it. So even though Dwight is setting up his own structure for these things to
the
happen,
only,
it's not happened yet. So all this other stuff's got to be going on. But who can do that? Bodhi's got
yeah,
the capability. He might, and I just
Bodhi.
don't know if they're holding back showing stuff on him. And I think that's what they're doing.
I wonder. Yeah, I wonder that too. Is Bodhi in league with Wall Trip, or is Bodhi just playing both sides,
Right.
or is Bodhi just gonna be the guy who walks away and
Yeah.
everyone else dies? Also, the other thing that happened in this episode, Chris Codovino's character, Dwight's old buddy, couple brother, shows up. He's picked up by Armand, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's kind of really upset because like, why is this guy here? It's like because Armand used to be one of their brothers, but he fled in '98, and he's been hiding here. And he's like, what? And so basically, this guy, the actor Chris Codovino, his character basically calls up Chicky, or basically Pete first, the father, and then this is on the tub scene, or right, well, actually before it, when Pete was in bed, and he puts him on speakerphone, and he says like, it's weird. It's like he's got a guy, it's a black guy driving from, and he's got Armand. He's like, well, Armand's here. It's like it's like he's weirded out, and he's got he's got his own little crew here going, and I could see this, and just as Chicky says, basically his dad, he's like, he can't control me anymore, and that's his, and Codovino, the actor, his character says that to them too.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, this guy is, we're no longer gonna control him much longer. He's got his own thing going here. He's got his own crew. What do you expect? No, not this way. What do you think was gonna happen? You sent him over there. You excommunicate. You kicked him on the family. But you still want him to work for you, and you're fucking around with his daughter. It's like, what do you think is gonna happen? I can tell you what's gonna happen. Now that Pete was murdered by his son, Chicky's gonna get killed. He's gonna get capped. And I wouldn't doubt it if Chicky gets if Dwight plays a Wall Trip against Chicky.
It's setting up for something which is interesting because, as I mentioned before, I didn't realize till I looked it up after like the second or third episode I mentioned it, where he's having coffee and the barista, the cute blonde, that's one of his real life daughters.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I want to call her hot, or she's definitely got a certain kind of look. Sometimes when you're a model, you have a look, but that doesn't mean you're pretty or you're hot. And to us guys, we categorize women as, oh, she's cute, or she's pretty, or she's hot, or some combination. It's hard to tell. So I don't know if she's going to take a bigger role, but we see, of course, her scrubbing the horse while she's talking with Dwight. So she's, involved.
Scarlett Rose Stallone, yeah.
Yeah. Man, if only they had JCVD's daughter in this. Oh, one could hope. But I just, outside of Stacy getting the phone call or trying to call Stacy up, and getting his voicemail, and he's intimidating her, and we know that that's coming ahead. I think the big swerve is Dana Delaney, because it's like,
True.
this is what the big thing is in the last part of this episode. And you wanted to mention that, so go ahead and take it, and I'll comment.
Yeah, Jamie Delaney's character. Well, he's basically she approached him while he's in there brushing the horse, and Stallone sends the other girl the way, his real life daughter, or whatever. But anyway, so as he's in there, he's like, and Dean Lincoln said, he was like, it's like, that horse really, he really wants you to ride him.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, does she want to ride Dwight?
Well, of course, that's the
because that's what I'm getting the end to win from that, right?
It is. Yeah.
So anyway, so she's really got the hots for him, and now the crazy thing, they go at the dinner and stuff, and like I love the little joke she says, like, let me buy you dinner. He's like buy me dinner. He's like, well, that's how we do things in 2022. Women buy guys dinner. So they have the dinner, and they have little jokes, about the veal and stuff. She's like, how do you like the veal? He's like, oh, it's great. She's like, bullshit. It's he's like, yeah, but so he's like, well, since we're being honest here, it's like, and he comes out and says, this is the best thing I've had in 25 years. I've been in prison locked up. And she gets weirded out a little bit. But you know what, though? I think she already knew that. I think there's something more. Except there's more to her to that, or she just gets off on having sex with felons, because he says, like, aren't you going to ask me when I was in lockup for 25 years? Like, she's like, I can just Google and say it was awkward. And he's like, well, let me save you the time. I killed a guy, but no, man, the house was on fire, and he was burned to death, and I put him out of his misery, So whether that story is true or if that's supposed to, but we're getting a little more insight to what basically the crime he went to jail for. We know that he didn't kill the guy, actually, that we know of. I think he just took the rap. Either way, so she's kind of like awkward, kind of weirded out a little bit, but it's, like I said, it kind of ends like right around there. Yeah. And meanwhile we're getting like the little going around. You can see Chicky, walks down like the kingpin.
Exactly.
Like the wig off.
It says, okay, this is a new Chicky, and he's a badass. I'm gonna tell you what about Dana Delaney.
Yeah.
I was making the leaps there with Bodie and what's his face with the money, and I go, she'd be the perfect cover for running a whole entire shit show out there in Tulsa. She's been established. Yep. She's a woman
for 8 years now
in a proper circle of society, as a white female, middle-aged, wealthy, with a lot of people working for her. She knows exactly what he was when he walked up the first time or two, and the fact that she wanted to have a date with him to buy dinner, I looked at that as she's feeling him out because she knows who he is. You're absolutely right. There's absolutely zero chance.
Wall trip could actually work for her.
Exactly, and I think that's what it is. So I'm wondering if the sides are going to be her and Waltrip's crew versus the old crew versus Dwight's crew, and that would come out to the ABC organization thing I was telling you about, where Dwight's team takes a hit and then whatever, and you could do this in a couple different ways. And I was thinking earlier on, when we were trying to make projections where this is going, what's going to happen? And I think you don't have Dana Delaney on there for a cameo. You can have Charlton Heston in Wayne's World for a scene and everybody laugh and you can have a great time, and it's a phenomenal thing that you'll always remember. But you don't have Dana Delaney in here for a cameo.
Yeah.
She's got whatever her storyline is going to be. There's going to be some meat and potatoes under it. She's smart. She's the smart one in Tulsa, and I think between her and Bodie, I look at them as being like exactly on the same page. Maybe he works for her. I don't know. Maybe he's playing both sides, but they're teasing us. And yet while they've whacked a few people within the herd out, like to your point, I still kind of don't know where this is going. I kind of wish I had an idea so I could feel it building, but watching Chicky transform, I thought was the best thing in this episode, seeing him, because at first I was kind of like, yeah, we know Daddy didn't love him as much because he's a wuss ass, and then he whacks his dad and is like coming after it. The way he did it, he wasn't yelling, he wasn't screaming, and I'm like,
yeah, I'm
liking this Chicky. Yeah, you're showing me some heat, bro.
Now the other thing is that the two we call her Tweak.
Yeah.
Her twitchy.
Yeah.
She's wearing a dress, and even because he plays a commenter when he walks into the weed shop with White Gizzard, he's like, and she's like, and he's like, oh, you didn't? He's like, yeah, and it's like she acted, because I think he was kind of surprised too, because at first she's quiet, but she actually spoke a full sentence. The other one is the dread boy. Tyson goes up. Tyson goes up the kid. The white kid is using the dreads. Like, thank you for respecting my people's culture and get rid of those dreads. So yeah, we didn't see Perry Corbin in this episode, but he was in the previous episode. So like, at least got to see him at least once. But yeah, Dana. Yeah, I wouldn't put it surprise if Dana Delaney comes out and just and she's just like she's the big bad guy.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't know how this is going to turn out.
Because remember, because how does Waltrip have control over the cops?
It can't. I don't think it can be a simple matter of just paying them.
No.
And he talks to them, and they know. But the point is there's a common thread there, right?
Yeah.
And so what's it going to be revealed, or will it be in the season here? If it's Dan Delaney's group, if it's the old group, I don't know. Because remember, they sent the one guy, I forget his name, that works for him. We didn't see him too much this episode, out there, and he just kind of collected them and started using them when they kind of had banished him to Tulsa. And I think that's where they originated the idea of where they were going to send him, right? So I'm like, he's like, oh, he's working for Dwight now. It's like, yeah, well, shit. Didn't really think that would happen, but. Yeah, there's obviously something bigger with the town, I think, that they're not getting into. And they've really, honestly, early on when he went to go see the weed dealers out there and he met that mad Indian guy, thinking some stuff was going to happen there, we haven't come back to that. So it's a little annoying to me that you introduce a lot of little things and you don't really do much with them. But at the same time, some of the good things about this show so far is that you get some surprises that you don't know they're going to take that way, like the barista becoming pilot's worker, if you want to call it that. Okay, she's going to play a bigger role at some point. Stallone's daughter, for God's sakes, we know it has to, right? You and I talked about the idea of Tyson maybe starting to get a little full of stuff or whatever.
That's right? The other thing the other thing too is that Chicky and Pete were pissed off that Dwight gave his ring to Tyson.
Apparently, that was a big no-no in the Mafia family for some reason. Which I didn't really know that, but it was made clear to anybody watching this episode that you don't do that.
Well, like I said, it's another way to cut ties to between the New York mob family and with Dwight, because at this point, Dwight's already pissed off. They didn't protect his daughter. Why he agreed that he took the fall for the guy, did beat a solid in over 25 years, didn't say a word, didn't squeal. He finds out that one of the guys was raping his daughter. And now somebody went and shook down, beat up his daughter's husband, and we know it was Chicky, because the guy came up to him and just, it looked just like Chicky, and we know that Chicky's he's just killed his dad, so the guy's losing it. He's tired of being disrespected. He's having a little temper tantrum, and I can't blame Dwight. Dwight's 76 years old, and he got this guy who's probably like Chicky's probably like 49, 50 years old or whatever. And he's like, I'm not going to deal with this shit, And so I think Chicky's going to either Chicky and Waltrip are going to either kill each other somehow, or they're going to team up and then Dwight's going to kill them both, or, and what's the ATF, because Stacy, they're watching Waltrip, now their informant's dead. She's got to say something now, and she's over her head. Dana Delaney is just I can see her being the big baddie. I can see Bodie maybe working for Waltrip particularly, or is it Bodie is a guy he just kind of like quietly just gets out of it. Mitch is gonna die, not this season, but maybe next season. I
don't know, but this episode, like I say, it felt cool because I still feel like even though we're taking things a bit more seriously now, it just felt like the tension was building, and that's what I've been waiting for. And I told you I hope it pivots and goes in that direction, and it's definitely doing that.
And definitely saw the preview for next week's episode with Dwight and Tyson being pulled over by the cops because Waltrip wants Dwight in the jail cell so he can get to him.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my god! So everything's like sprung under control. Of course, when you see the clip, we see that Dwight's holding his gun under his jacket, and then this is going to cause problems because now Chicky doesn't want he's going to have to he wants to kill Dwight. He wants to make Dwight suffer.
Yeah,
like I said, so you're going to have two people trying to like basically fight over making Dwight suffer, and he can't do nothing if Dwight's in jail.
Well, I tell you, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought for some reason it went very fast.
Yeah,
Even
then
though there wasn't really a lot of action or really fast or slow scenes, it just was meat and potatoes right through it. A lot of stuff happening, and it was a pleasure to watch. I really enjoyed it. And after the first few episodes, like I told you, I wasn't sure how it was going to be, but I'm starting to relax definitely a bit more about it. And having a season 2 helps. What final thoughts do you have about it?
final thoughts about this. It's 7 episodes in. I think there's like 10,
I
maybe.
believe so. Yep.
Yeah, it's on. This is on Paramount. You know, if anything to watch on
Peacock.
Paramount.
Wait, no, it's not
Or it's,
Peacock. Excuse me.
is it Peacock or is it?
It's Paramount.
Yeah. So, if I learned anything about Paramount, there's 2 things to watch on there: the South Park COVID stuff, which is hilarious, and then watch this. This is great. I'm not saying you have to go and get Paramount. You know, I'm sure there are other. This will probably be on DVD by March, maybe. The first season will be on Walmart, maybe, and definitely worth picking up on Blu-ray.
Oh, I just want to say to Ed and everybody else checking out the chat, if we don't talk to you next week on New Year's Eve, or you're out busy enjoying it and celebrating all that, have a happy new year. Have an Xtreme 2023. We're definitely going to be doing some great things there too. It's a lot of fun. The show's definitely picking up. I'm glad it hasn't fizzed out. That's all I've got to say here, because normally you and I on Tuesday nights would be covering action movies of some sort, typically, whether it's from the 80s or somewhere else here on the Xtreme Movie Show. But we're just digressing because we have such a fondness for Stallone. So really looking forward to finishing out the next couple weeks of that before we get back to our meat and potatoes and all that.
I'm thinking you Pixel should go over the best TV shows of the year.
I will say this. I'm starting to watch the one called Severance that was on Apple. Episode 2 has Christopher Walken in it, who apparently is a character, and it's about what happens when you're at work and you go undergo a procedure and you say, I'm going to allow work to allow me to only have my work memories at work and everything else when I'm away from it. It's very, I would say, Wayward Pines-ish minus monsters. It's an extremely slow burn kind of thing, but it's interesting, and I think it's got some interesting things that they're saying about corporate stuff, and I don't know how it's going to play out at all, but it's very dark and gloomy, and I love it. So I'm getting ready to watch that. Pixel and I might be taking a look at that, and of course we'll continue our Dark Shadows review. That's been doing some killer business for us, and also we're going to slip in there our monthly James Bond review. We are up to, believe it or not, almost quite halfway through. With Roger Moore, we're going to be doing For Your Eyes Only, probably live this Sunday, in addition to Dark Shadows and whatever movie the three of us decide. So see you guys then. Have a good night. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting everybody know about the Xtreme Movie Show. And of course, stay extreme. Good night, everybody.